recording first, right? Take it. So first thing first, how do we attach our JS in HTML? We have done way many times this thing. All we have to do is we have to write a script inside somewhere, maybe after body, maybe after HTML, but it should be there. Thick. So am I attaching my JS to my HTML now? HTML JS, I'm attaching it via script tag, right? So if I do console.log hello, should I be getting this somewhere? Where? On the browser, right? So if I go live and let me just create that structure so we can have access to these things. So if I quickly open the console, right, we're gonna see everything on our console itself, right? Let me just quickly reload it once. Take. So we're seeing the hello there, right? Now, have we ever encountered this term that says everything in JS is object? Have you heard about it before? सुना है क्या? सुना है क्या? Any idea what does this thing means? इसका मतलब क्या है? Any idea? Like, okay, document is object, makes sense. Take. So what happens is JavaScript is gonna follow an approach which is called OOPS approach, right? Or basically this thing is called object-oriented programming, right? Why do we need to go that way? Because accessing and updating an object is easy, right? Easy hota hai and it makes more modular code. Take, what do I mean by that? Let's say I have an object. So let's say I'm giving it a key, this thing, right? Can I easily access that thing? obj.a, I'll be able to access it, right? The object is object in JS, that's fine. Do we do something like this? Let's say I have a string, let str equals to help, right? If I do str dot length, should I be getting the length of this string? String की length मिलेगी. And what was string? String किस तरीके का data type था? Was it primitive or non-primitive? Primitive. We know that non-primitive data types, all of them are objects. Thick arrays are objects, objects are objects, and functions are also special cases of objects. Thick, but are we not doing something that we do in object with our string? String के साथ भी वैसे ही कुछ कर रहे हैं, which we do in object, accessing it by a dot notation, right? So in hindsight, this str is also wrapped inside a string constructor. Thick will be understanding कि basically ये constructor क्या होता है, but everything in JS is wrapped as an object. ठीक? And where do we find everything in JS? It's basically in global objects. Global objects में we are gonna find everything that we create in JS. Any idea what might global object mean? Global object का मतलब क्या होगा? Any idea? Okay, you can see window, all right. It can be accessed throughout program, correct. Definition is correct. Window, all right. So usually we come across two objects which are global, which is basically window and document, right? And these objects are gonna be accessible anywhere. Kahin pe bhi, we should be able to access these objects, right? So first thing first, let's do one thing. Let's console.log this window and let's see कि इस object में है क्या, right? So if I click on it, like this thing is object, right? It has keys and it has certain values, right? So do we remember alert people? Alert everyone, anyone? What does alert do? It sends a pop-up, right? So it's attached to your window thing, right? Let's say I create a variable and let's say this thing is called username, right? And I'm saying print. ठीक. So if I go and search in window now, I'm going to find this username somewhere. क्यों? Because this thing is going to be taken and attached to a parent like window object. Take a global object. So let's see username. It should be somewhere in U. So username. Let's do one thing. Let's name it something easy so that we are going to find it upside where. So let's say I'm doing data, right? So now if I go and check for data, right? You see, it's getting attached in him, right? So what do you guys think if I go and write window dot data, what should I be getting? Window dot data karunga, so what should I be getting? The value, right? So if I go and uncomment this, I'm getting that certain value, right? So is it clear that there is a parent global object, end game wala object hai, and it is accessible everywhere. What's it called? It's called window. Theek. Now here's the thing, not catch, but a thing that this window is basically browser's object, right? Browser ka global object hai. Theek. Now, do we have any other browser ka global object except for this thing? We have just talked about it. Document. What does document hold? Document object के पास क्या होता है? Document object के पास क्या होता है? HTML, the DOM tree that we talked about. So if I do document, I'm gonna get the DOM tree or basically जो HTML that all is stored as an object model format. ठीक? So this thing is gonna be your structure, or rather, let me just name it HTML object, right? And the window, what will this be? What will this be? JS object, right? So JS ka global object, I can call it. Take. All right. Think about this. Let's say I'm going in here and I'm creating one more file. Take. I'm gonna name it index.js, right? And I'm gonna do console.log window engine. All right. I have this index.html file. I'm not attaching or giving reference to index.js file anywhere in this. Take. This thing is standalone, akela file. So if I go in terminal, right, I'm not going to print iska solution in browser. Should I? No, I'm not attaching it to HTML. Thick. So if I go in here and if I do node index, lecture code, and in there node index.js. If I press enter on it, do you guys think I should be able to access window object? Because keep in mind, window object na browser ka object hota. Any browser involved in this thing. Tick. So what's the difference between this file and yahan ka JS file? The difference is that is file ka runtime is browser ka JS, right? Browser's JS is the runtime of this file, but iske liye the Node.js that we have installed in our PC. Tick. So if I click enter on it, I'm gonna get window is not defined. All right. So standalone ke liye bhi we have a global object. It's called global only, right? So if I go and do a clear, we do node index, no? Index, my bad. HTML nahi. Let me just clear it. Node index.js. Thick. So I am again accessing a global object. Yes. Yes, we are accessing a global object. You see, object which is global. Right. So if you want to access some like global object in standalone file, you have to go for global, whereas in HTML or browser se connected files, what do we go for? Which global object do we go for? Everyone, window. Tick. And this is going to show exact same things. So let's say कि मैं यहाँ पे जाके, if I go and add let data equals to tick. So if I go in here and if I clear it and if I do node index.js, I'm not going to find it. Find करना में थोड़ा time लगता है. I'll just write global.data. So if this thing exist in global, I'm gonna get that data, else I'm gonna get undefined. Makes sense, right? So if I press enter, I'm getting undefined. Okay. Okay, just clear it and node index dot js. First let's print global and fit it. So I mean the issue might be initiated with var. Take, so let me do one thing. Let me just initiate with the username, right? So let's see. So if I do username and let me clear it, node index.js. I'm still getting undefined. All right. Okay, that's a bit unexpected. Let me print the global and let's see. Okay. Okay, not an issue. I mean, sometimes it might give errors like this. Sure, wait. So, index.js, getting that anywhere. Right, that's fine. We'll talk about this a bit later. ठीक है कोई नहीं. So back to our browser का runtime. इसमें what we were trying to do is working, so that's fine. Window का data we are able to access it. Let's go back and let me just screen share again. So this thing. ठीक है. So we are able to access this. Might be a issue of global. This we'll see that later. But अभी के लिए let's go back in here. ठीक. तो browser पे it's working. We're able to access our window data and document data. ठीक. So why we have a global object, is that clear, everyone? ठीक. So it basically attaches whatever we have in our global object. ठीक. But there is one more issue. So let's say I have var data1 equals to Virat. I have let data2 equals to okay, and I have const data3 equals to let's just say help. Take. So if I do console.log my window object, what type of variable is this? Var. कौन सा scope है? What does this variable has? What type of scope? Global scope. Global scope. So it makes sense that this should be accessible everywhere. इसके everywhere accessible होना makes sense, right? So that's why we know that it should be attached to browser का object, which is our window. But will it make sense to attach let and const, which are block scoped variables, to our global object? ये दोनों should they be able to access globally, block छोड़ के? No, right? So let's say if we go in here and if we try to access the data, right? I'm just gonna find data1. Take. So data1 is gonna be attached to your global object क्योंकि we need to access var के variables in our global scope, right? But these two things are not gonna be accessible in global object. So if I do data1, right, I should be getting console or whatever I've written. If I do window.data2, I'm gonna get undefined, right? The same thing is gonna happen for take. So now var is gonna be attached to global object, right? But that thing does not happens to these two. तो फिर क्या होता है इनके साथ? What basically happens is we're gonna learn a bit more about this in hosting, but they are like temporarily sent to a zone which is called temporal dead zone. Take. It's just a term, you just have to remember it. That's all. Take. It's not a space that we need to know about, but we just assume कि ये चीजें, if they are not in global object, they are sent into something which is called temporal dead zone. ठीक. So far is everything clear कि how do we define things and how do they get attached to global object, but if they have block scope तो they don't get attached to it. इतना clear है? छोटी सी बात. Everyone, right? What about others, guys? Is it clear? ठीक. Means always use where. No, that's why we usually go with let. ठीक. क्योंकि where के साथ if we go ना, we're gonna able to access where anywhere globally. ठीक. And it's not preferred कि एक block का variable should be accessible to another block. ठीक. तो it's usually preferred कि you go with let, but if you want some variable जिसको आपको change नहीं करना है, you go with const. ठीक. But if you want to make something globally accessible, क्या करोगे? You will go with where. ठीक. And this thing happens with everything that you define in JS. Either you define object, either you define function, everything is going to be hosted in your global object, which is window. ठीक. ठीक. It is also global when we don't use any keyword, right? Not exactly sure ki what you're asking, but yeah, like window has the keywords that we use, right? So let's say we are using dot alert, we are using like clear timeout or interval. We're gonna learn these things, but these are there. Without where let const. Yeah. ठीक है. I got it what you're asking. So guys, remember we did something like this when we were writing for loop. I equals to 0, I is less than 5, and I plus plus, right? If I write a console dot log I in here, should I be getting an error? Yeah, this loop is gonna run still. Still, it was gonna run, right? It's printing. Right? Even though we haven't defined variable. क्यों होता है? JavaScript implicitly gives it a global variable, right? So let's say I'm defining a variable, I'm going to call it data, and this thing is going to hold hello, right? So if I do console.log this data, I'm going to get hello. I'm not going to get an error. Why so? अगर हम जाके we print our window object, right? We'll see that this data is still attached to global, right? Data was somewhere here. You see this thing. So if you don't give it any keyword, it's gonna implicitly send that data to your global variable. ठीक है? Make sense? Right? ठीक है. So why do we have to know about global object? Because we are moving towards some keyword which was called this. Remember this keyword? What does it do? This क्या करता है? Object method में? Yes, correct. Refers to their parent object. All right. So let's say I'm creating an object equals to this, and I'm saying that I have a1, and I'm gonna write a method. Let's say add, right? Or let's say I'm gonna call it print. So if I write a function in here, and if I want to console.log a, should I be writing a or should I be writing this dot a? This dot a, right? So let's do one thing. Let's just print this, right? I'm going to access that object and I'm going to do print. And of course, I'm going to call it, right? So this is going to refer to this entire parent object, right? That's what we're getting. We're getting a and the print function, which is pretty much the key value pairs we have in that object. Okay. All right. So what makes sense with this keyword is it basically refers to a parent object. एक parent object को refer करते हैं, right? But let's say there is no parent object. Let's say if I do console.log of this, should I be getting an error? I don't have any parent object. If I uncomment this, because I'm gonna get some console, that's why I've commented it. But मान लो if this thing is uncommented, should I be getting an error or should I be getting something else? Okay, correct. So how many of us think कि even though there is nothing written here, there is still one object. एक object है which is above everything in JS. There is one object. Remember, we just talked about that object. Window, right? So let's say if I uncomment this, what am I getting? क्या मिल रहा है? Am I getting that window object? Window object मिल रहा है? Right. So I'm getting that global object. ठीक, तो this के अंदर we can add one more thing कि it's not a value, rather a pointer. Right. Now this, where have we written, that depends ki where it's gonna refer to, point to. Yes, if I'm writing this inside an object, it's gonna refer to that object. If I'm writing it in global scope, it's gonna point to our global object. Right. ठीक है. What do you guys think about this thing? Let's say if I go and write function, and this is going to be called let's say again, let me just call it print, and iske andar I'm writing console.log s. If I call this function, what do you guys think? What am I gonna get? If I do console, or rather let's just call this function, I'm gonna run this function. Still global. Why so? Is this function inside any object? किसी object में है ये function? Nope, right? But it is inside global object. Global object में है. So this is gonna refer to the window. Clear? तो up until now we knew कि this जो है वो global object, वो object parent object को point करता है. But now we know कि this is basically a flexible pointer which depends कि उससे हमने कहाँ लिखा है. If it's written inside an object, then that's gonna refer to that parent object. If it's written outside of object, where is it gonna point? किधर point करेगा? Outside of object? Window. और rather window बोलने से बजाय global object. Makes sense, guys? Any doubts till now? This में we just learned in few new properties of this. So any doubts? Everything clear? कोई भी doubt नहीं किसी को भी? Guys, anyone with any doubt, please let me know. No? All right. Okay, so that's actually great. Okay, so as I told you, now this thing is gonna refer based on where we have placed it. So we have three methods for functions. Does this sounds weird? Methods for function? Sir, Windows also contains functions. Yes. If you go and try to find this print inside that window, you'll be able to find it. Right? So we have some methods for functions. Methods usually किसके होते हैं? Methods. Like where have we heard about methods last time? With methods के बारे में कहाँ सुना था? Okay. Objects, right. So there is a, like, you can call it definition, saying, or anything, but functions are called first class citizens in JS. ऐसा क्यों बोलते हैं कि functions are called first class citizens? क्योंकि they have properties of multiple different things. जैसे they can be assigned as values. Can we assign a function as value? Is that possible? कभी किया है हमने guys, assigning functions as values. Remember जब हम objects बनाते हैं and we create methods, are we not creating a variable which is called key in object, and we are assigning an anonymous function to that as a value? Right. right? So it can be assigned values. It can have properties just like other objects. Take, so it can be assigned values and it can have properties just like other objects. That's why you might hear it somewhere. The functions are called first class citizen in JS. So you'll say ki yes, that is true or false. True or false? True or false? True, right? Right? ठीक है, ठीक है. So let's say I create a function which is called let's say fruit eating, right? And if I go and basically maybe call this function, right? And let me just write a console dot log this in this, right? So if I do call this function, what am I gonna get? I mean, it's pretty clear by now. The window object, right? Yes, Harshit. Yeah. Tick. So these methods that we're talking about in functions, no, we have mainly three, which are called call, apply, and bind. Have you heard about these? Maybe if you have gone through your pre-class, call, apply, bind के बारे में सुना है? Right, right, right. So basically, call, apply, bind क्या करता है? Let's say, uh, I have an object, right? ये basically I have a function. Take. Now, if I do this in this function, where should this refer to? If I do a this in this function, ये refer कहाँ करेगा? It's gonna refer to our window object, right? Let's say I have an object and it has some properties, right? It has a certain key and that key has a certain value. All right. So if I create a method that basically makes this function उल्टा हो गया, that basically makes this function point to this object. Tab, if this function is pointing to this object, when we do this, what should we access? I mean, hypothetically बात कर रहे हैं. We are not talking about syntax or anything. I'm just talking to you hypothetically. Let's say I have a function, right? इसके अंदर I have written this. So without this pointing thing, it's gonna refer to our window object. That's like clear. We have seen it multiple times, right? But let's say by some method or anything, I create a reference for this object in this function. Thick. So now this should refer to this object. Yes, yes. But वही चीज happens with our call, right? So let's say I have a variable which is called fruit1 equals to orange, right? Now, if I go in here and let me just comment this out, I'm gonna just put it here and where's our document? Take. So if I go in here and if I write the function's name fruit detail, right? How do we call a method? How do we call a method? By writing a dot notation, right? So I'm gonna do a dot call, right? अभी ये dot call क्या करेगा? It's gonna point to somewhere जो भी हमने पास किया है object in parameter, right? Right? So let's say I have an object which has a key value pair, right? So I'm calling it fruit name and this thing has a value of orange, right? So if I write fruit1 in this, what happens is basically ये call क्या करता है? It makes this to point into this object, right? So if I go in here and if I print this dot fruit name, what should I get if I uncomment this line? Orange, orange. Basically क्या हो रहा है? When we write something like this, no, एक function बनाया and we are calling it with a certain object. So that object becomes the parent of this function. right? So if I go and uncomment it, what am I getting? Orange, right? Right. So that's basically call for you, right? Working समझ आया? Call किया क्या? What is that doing? This is global? No, no. Okay. So let's have this thing, and let's not go with call for now. I'm gonna uncomment line number 80. Line number 80, guys, I'm gonna uncomment that. What do you guys think is gonna happen? I'm gonna run this function and I'm gonna run line number 77, right? Where is this referring to? In line number 80. Keep this in mind. Line number 80 पे हैं हम लोग, and where is this gonna refer to? ठीक ठीक हाँ संतोष, लेट्स टेक इट वंस मोर. ठीक, एक बार शुरू से समझने की कोशिश करते हैं. ठीक, so I have written a function, right? Just forget about this object, we're not associating with that. Let me just remove this thing for now. ठीक, I'm just calling this function. What should I get on my console? Just calling that function, nothing else. Okay, why am I getting that? Okay, so if I uncomment this, no, I'm gonna point to I'm pointing to my global object, and that global object does not have any variable with this dot fruit name. So एक बार let me just keep it as this, right? So I'm referring to that window object, the global one, right? And I'm trying to access dot fruit name inside this, which is not present. That's why I'm getting undefined. Take this thing makes sense, everyone. That thing is making sense, right? Now, what happens with call? No, when we write a function, right? When we write a function fruit detail, right? And we do a call in it. So basically, हम क्या कर रहे हैं? We're asking this function to create a pointer towards a object that we're gonna pass in this call, right? And for now, I'm gonna pass this fruit one. So if I pass this fruit one, no, what it's gonna do is it's gonna create like this thing is hypothetical, but it's gonna create something like this. So it's gonna create fruit, and that fruit is gonna hold your this function. Take. So fruit name equals to orange. Right? Right. Again, hypothetically, but something like this is gonna happen. All right. So this one. So now should this refer to this parent object? Right? Right. तो बस वही काम है this का. It is just a pointer, and we can change that pointer by using call, apply, bind. ठीक है, अभी call clear है कि how call is working, what is happening with call, guys? 1 or 0 in chat. I want to know if you guys are getting it or not. Everyone. Okay. ठीक है. ठीक है. So let's do one thing. Let's create one few more objects, right? So let's have fruit 2, and this thing is gonna have a fruit name as apple, right? And let's create one more fruit name, this thing, and this object is gonna have has grapes, right? So we have these multiple objects, and we have a function which is basically saying this dot fruit name, right? So if I go and if I write fruit 2 in it, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? So basically, it's nothing but passing of a reference and all, right? So if I just call this fruit detail function, right? It's gonna call this function with this dot fruit name, but this is gonna refer to your window object. So we don't have any fruit name variable in our window object. So we are gonna get undefined, right? यहाँ पे we are gonna get undefined, right? So if I go and uncomment it, we are getting undefined. Think that makes sense. Then then we learned that we have a method which can make this to point to some object, right? So हमने क्या किया? That method is basically called call, and we did detail dot call, and इसके अंदर we just pass the reference of that object, right? So let's say I'm using fruit 3, ठीक? So I'm calling fruit 3, and what do you think is gonna happen? Now this is gonna refer to which object? Fruit 3? Yes, no, anything? Yes, correct, Santosh. Right, right. So now if I go and uncomment it now, we'll see I'm gonna get that grapes. Thick. So rephrasing it again, you are gonna write your function, right? You're gonna write your call, and iske andar you're gonna pass object. Thick. Whichever object you have passed, no, that object is gonna become the parent object. That's all. That's all what call does. All clear? So fruit detail is an object and call is a built-in method. Yes. Yes. Right? Okay. So you guys tell me, let's say if I want to print fruit name apple, what should I do? How can I write it? Everyone? If I want to access the fruit name apple, how can I write that? Fruit detail dot call and that particular parent object. Take, we're gonna pass fruit this one, so I'm gonna pass that fruit. Easy, easy, right? So call, and I'm gonna call that fruit. Check. So it's gonna refer to that. Easier, call easier, right? Right. But let's say we have to access few more things. हमें इस function में we are passing arguments also. Let's say I'm passing color and I'm passing taste, right? So I'm saying that I have this dot fruit name, and it tastes whatever taste that I have. So let's say I'm writing taste in here, and has color, and whatever color it has, right? So if I want to do something like this, what can I do? I have to pass arguments, right? So do you think I should be able to pass some arguments here itself? Right? Let's see. So if I'm passing fruit, let me just comment this one out so that we don't see the result outright. Let's pass color, let's go with red. We are accessing apple, right? So red, and taste, let's go with sweet. Take. So if I go and uncomment it, I'm gonna run this function. Where is the parent? This is gonna refer to. This kisko refer karega? If I run line number 92, everyone. Where is this gonna refer to? Fruit 2, everyone, right? Not apple. Apple is a part of this fruit 2, right? But the parent is fruit 2. है ना? है ना? And then we are passing some arguments which we are accepting in this function, right? ये function कितने argument accept कर रहा है? Parameters basically दो, and we are passing how many arguments? 3. But are we directly passing it in this function, or are we passing it via method? Method को pass कर रहे, right? So what happens is call is gonna take the पहला वाला argument for itself, right? So if you do this, no, the first argument is gonna be your object always, right? And then you can pass whatever arguments you want to pass in function. Take. So by this logic, if I uncomment this, should I be printing apple? It tastes your sweet, and the color is red. By that logic, yes, people, yes, no, anything. What are we expecting? Again, right? Let's see. So if I go and uncomment this, I'm gonna get apple. It tastes sweet and has color red. Understood? People, समझ आया? Right? Right? ठीक है. ठीक है. So let's say I wanna access my let's do it in here. This won't be visible then. I wanna access my grapes. I basically wanna print something like this. Grapes take not comma tastes it tastes sour and has color I guess yellow green. Right, guys, try this. Try doing this via call. Sir, what if we use call without passing? Is call a method of global object or sort of? I mean, it's gonna be accessible everywhere. So yeah, right. Okay. So let's say I'm calling it. I'm calling this without a parent object. So yeah, we are getting undefined. It tastes undefined and has color sweet. ठीक. तो बेसिकली क्या हो रहा है व्हाट वी टॉक्ड अबाउट. पहला आर्ग्यूमेंट व्हाट इट शुड बी फॉर कॉल. द very first argument it should be object, right? We're sending a string, right? So call is accessing that and it's sending the first argument के बाद जितना भी है it's sending that in here. ठीक. Now we are not passing any object. कोई object pass ही नहीं किया. Yes. So that thing is gonna be undefined. Pehla argument is going to be undefined because there is no object. So we are getting undefined and then we are passing sweet as the very first argument of this function. Color ki jagah, right? That's why the last thing is printing sweet. Clear? Remember, the parameters need to be in order. Right? Right? Okay. So here that thing is happening. Object is getting assigned as red, which is wrong. And your the color is getting assigned your sweet, right? But for taste, is there anything left in the parameters taste ke liye? No. So what happens if we are not passing any parameters? कोई argument pass नहीं करते, but there is a parameter defined. Undefined. Right. So undefined is gonna go there. Is this thing clear, people? This small thing that we discussed here. Everyone, guys, 1 0 anything clear hai nahi clear hai, that's fine. Okay. So yeah, back to line number 87. I want to print grapes and it tastes sour, has color yellow green. Here are the object, parent object, and here is the function. Karan correct. Santosh fruit 3 and we're calling yellow green. That's correct. Mulkesh, you're calling the function directly. ठीक है. Where is dot call? Method को कहाँ call किया हमने? श्रीपद correct. What about others, guys? एक line है. That's all. Ankita correct. What about others? Vanavi correct, but why plus? Go for like your comma, right? Right. Arguments में we should pass things as comma. ठंड में हाथ नहीं चल रहे हैं तो हाथ रगड़ लो भाई. ठीक है. चलो. So is call clear? Call clear? I mean it's very easy, right? एक बार you were able to wrap it around your head, it's easy. Yes. Reference of function, yeah, you can call that. Harshit, yes. Any doubts till now, people? कोई भी doubt है? Because if call is clear, na, apply and bind are very easy. बिल्कुल easy है. There is nothing else to learn. If you want all 3 fruits, 1, 2, and 3, how can I do it? Then you'll have to go for different console, no? आपको सबको अलग अलग तरीके से कॉल करना पड़ेगा. ठीक. अंकुश करेक्ट. ठीक है. ठीक है. So shall we move to apply? Call clear है everyone? ठीक. So if I want to define call, how can I define it? Can I say कि call is making this point to a certain object? Right. Right. Can I say call is making this to point at a certain object. And what's this object? कौन सा object है ये? कौन सा object है? Whatever we have passed in bracket, right? Whatever, or rather first argument in the bracket parenthesis, right? Right. Let's go with terms. Clear? Clear? This line makes sense, everyone? ठीक. Abhijit, what happens, no? क्योंकि देखो, things are gonna have one parent, right? This can refer to either fruit 1, fruit 2, or fruit 3. तो if you think कि we might have something जो कि एक साथ points to everything, तो you're gonna confuse JS, right? कौन सा parent होने वाला है? So that's why it's better to take one parent. ठीक. ठीक है. So let's go and try to understand apply. ठीक. Apply के लिए again I'm gonna need this code, so let's go for that. ठीक. So this thing. Now apply is exactly similar to call. ठीक. For now I have written line number 18. Right? Can we use this call method in for each while dealing with JSON data? Try it. Try it once. Try it. Right? So basically, this is gonna refer to any object that you're gonna point. ठीक? So if you have a function, you have an object, go for call. Call is gonna point to this. Right? Right? That's the fundamental. ठीक? If you have a function, if you have an object, go for call. That works. Try it. ठीक. Now I've written in line number 18, apply is exactly similar to call. So let's say I want to print grapes by using apply. What do you guys think? What should I do? In comments, everyone. Dot apply कैसे लिखना है? How are you gonna pass object? Please write it in chat. Given that, I'm telling you guys, apply is exactly similar to call. I need everyone to type that answer. Fruit detail dot apply, correct. Ankita, correct. What about others, guys? Check. Rohit, almost correct. Correct. For now, correct. Because I have said that apply is exactly similar to call. For now, I just have to print grapes. That's all. ठीक. Abhijit, correct. Shripat, correct. What about others? Santosh, correct. ठीक. Aparna, correct. Right. So all we have to do is we have to access this fruit detail. Yes, we have to write a apply. And if I pass fruit 3 in this, should I be printing grapes? Yes. Yes. So let's go and write it. If I go and write fruit 3, I'm printing grapes. बाकी दोनों चीज undefined आ रही है. We're gonna talk about it. But this dot fruit name, or rather this is basically again pointing to that object. Right? So why do we need 2 different methods for exact same thing? क्योंकि this statement has a but, right? Apply is exactly similar to call, but the way of passing arguments is different. Right? Arguments pass करने का तरीका, it's a bit different, right? So let's say when we are calling it using your call, we were passing first the object. First thing is gonna be object, that's clear. उसके बाद we were passing the argument properties, whatever our function needs. right? So we were passing sir, or maybe we were passing our taste as color, first color, right? So this is going to be yellow on the, we're doing this, something like this, right? But in apply, what happens is it takes just two arguments. First one is going to be your object and second one is going to be array. And in this array, you can provide the element जिस order में आ रहे. So first thing you want color, you're going to provide that color. And second thing you want the taste, so you're going to provide that specific. Take the grape, it tastes sour and has color yellow. That's the only difference between call and apply. Clear, people? That depends on use case. ठीक, मान लो if you want to go with writing different commas and then passing these things, go for it. Or else आप just two arguments pass करो and it basically makes it a little bit easy to iterate. That's what goes there. ठीक, no big difference. That's the only difference. Clear? Clear? I mean, the only reason is there because why do we need data structure? To provide a bit structure to it. उसी तरीके से we are just providing it a bit structure. ठीक? Yes. Yes. So it's gonna take two argument. First is gonna be your object and second is gonna be your whatever arguments आपको चाहिए. You're gonna create an array for that. Make sense, guys? Clear? Any doubts in this? Apply. So let's say I want to print apple. कहाँ गया? What am I printing? Apple, it tastes sweet, has color red. How can I print this? By using apply. पढ़ना correct. Santosh correct. Rohit correct. Harshit correct. Abhijit correct. Yes, you guys are getting it. ठीक है. So far so good. Easy है. Easy है, right? Rahul correct. Ankush correct. ठीक है, guys. That's it. Take so far easy. Nothing big. Tick, tick, and bind is also something similar, somewhat similar, right? So let's say I'm again copying this and let's go in here and let's do one thing. Let's write fruit detail dot bind and इसके अंदर let's pass fruit 2. ठीक, if I go and uncomment this, what am I getting? Console में we are getting some trash data. Let me just go live again and yeah, let me just inspect this. So in here, are we getting anything in console? No, no. Why? Because bind method returns a function. What does that mean? This entire thing is returning a function. A function. And what do we do with functions? Functions के साथ क्या करते हैं? We invoke them, we call them, right? Right. So let me do one thing. Let my fruit equals to this thing, right? Let's first console.log my fruit and let's see what we are getting. What are we getting? I have done fruit detail dot bind and I'm doing fruit 2 and I'm just printing this variable. Am I getting a function fruit detail? Right? Right? I'm getting this whole function. Take. So shall I invoke it to see what I'm actually getting? right? Right. So let me invoke it, right? Am I getting am I still accessing that parent object? Yes. Yes. Right. And let's say I want to pass something in here, so I can pass let's say red and so, right. So that thing is gonna be accessible. Clear? Clear? So what we can say is call it returns. क्या return करता है call? It returns a value, right? Right? It returns a value. Yeah, here we are going to use arguments. Tick, tick. Same thing goes for apply. Call and apply both are returning some values when we are doing invoking that function. But bind is gonna return a function and it needs to be invoked. ठीक. एक तरीका ये है इन्वोक करने का, यू स्टोर इट इन अ वेरिएबल एंड देन इन्वोक दैट वेरिएबल, और यू कैन जस्ट इन्वोक इट डायरेक्टली देन एंड देयर. ठीक. सो व्हाट यू कैन डू इज यहीं पे दिस एंटायर थिंग इज दैट फंक्शन, राइट? राइट, दिस एंटायर whatever I have marked, I have highlighted, this thing is function that we are getting in return, right? Right. So if I just call this function, I'm getting that. I'm getting that. Right? So this is a way of calling it. Thick. And in here, let me give you guys a small hint of something that we have. It's basically called IIFE, right? It's nothing but immediately invoke function expression, right? So let's say I have a function, right? It's an anonymous function and it says console.log hello world, right? So if I wrap it in our bracket and uske baad if I just call it, no, it's gonna get immediately invoked as soon as this function is touched by JavaScript. ठीक है? So you see, we are calling it without name. जैसे ही ये function लिखा वैसे ही we are calling it. So this is something which is called IIFE or immediately invoked function expression. Keep this in mind. This is also something that we are gonna deal with in coming lectures. ठीक है? People, any doubts in call, apply, bind? Any doubts? Right? And so far it's easy, right? It's gonna be just like this. ऐसा ही कुछ होने वाला है. Nothing very big or small. ठीक? The pace is just gonna be like this. जो tough है, it's gonna be just like that. That's all. All right. Actual use of bind is that, let's say I have a function, I know an object, I'm binding that thing, right? Where is that? This thing, right? So let's say I'm binding it. Take, I'm not immediately invoking it. I am storing it in a variable called myFruit, right? Now, fruit detail. Now let's say I have 100 lines of code after this, right? Still, I can call it, right? And I can call it multiple times over. All right. So basically, why do we do something in JavaScript that is basically JavaScript? Why do we do something in programming to make it dynamic? Right? We need things to be dynamic, right? So basically, there is a principle which is called dry principle, right? Dry principle, which basically means don't repeat yourself. Right? So we don't want to repeat ourselves bar hame, we don't have to create this function, then we have to access this object, where we want to use it, we will go and do dot call, right? But dot call is not going to store value. It's going to print it then and there. But man look, if you have to use it multiple way, right? So you can just bind it and call it as many times as you want. Make sense? Make sense? Everyone? Right? ठीक है. So that's pretty much it. Right? Yeah, call can do. Okay, let's say, I have to call this fruit, right? And I have to print this statement, right? So uh, fruit detail dot call, and इसके अंदर I'm gonna do fruit 3 comma whatever color we have, and color I'm gonna pass it in here, and the text. Right? Of course, this thing is going to print your statement, right? But let's say I have a distance of 100 codes, and then I have to print this thing again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this entire thing, right? Then let's say after 20 lines of code, I'm going to still need to do this. I'm going to still write that. ठीक, उसके बाद मान लो then I have 200 lines of code, and फिर ये करना है. Again, this thing is redundant. बार बार लिखना पड़ रहा है, right? उसी बजाय if I go and do let fruit equals to fruit detail detail dot bind, and इसके अंदर I do like this entire thing. ठीक, I go and put it in here. Now, wherever I want to use the value, can I not just replace it with fruit and the function call? Right? Right? Just get this fruit and call it. It's going to replace your entire line. ठीक, so we are not repeating ourselves. We want to follow the dry principle. Clear? Clear? ठीक है, ठीक है. So guys, any doubts in call apply bind so far? Try it, Santosh. एक बार try करो. Take few things you need to try it yourself, right? And then if you have any doubts in that, we can take it later. Tick. So guys, let's do one thing. Now we'll be actually moving towards constructor function. It's not a very big topic, छोटा सा topic है, but before that we need to understand कि what global is and tick this क्या करता है and all. So I hope कि the call apply bind cleared it that this is not a fixed value. सिर्फ एक fixed parent object को नहीं बताता है. It refers to a object whichever scope में है, right? So if it's inside an object, it's gonna refer to that object. If it's in global scope, it's going to refer to a global object. And if you're using call apply bind, it's going to refer to whichever object you are passing. Yeah, sure. We are going to cover strict. Use strict. Yes, that's going to be covered. ठीक, but अभी के लिए इतना clear है, everyone? ठीक, so let's do one thing. Guys, have a break of 3 minutes and then get back. ठीक, 18, everyone get back at 18. चलो. Right. Everyone back. आगे सब. So I see drop in participants. Like, do you guys join from two different accounts? ऐसा कुछ होता है for audio and all. I mean, I have seen those things happen. ठीक है. Everyone back. आगे सब कोई. All right. So shall we start with our constructor functions? ठीक. Again. Constructor function और छोटा सा चीज है. So we can talk about it later. एक काम करते हैं. Let's start a new. And in here we just open my console. Take, and in here I'm gonna type. We are gonna learn about factory functions, right? Factory functions. What does factory means? Factory का मतलब क्या होता है? Factory का मतलब क्या होता है? Default, okay. Data store somewhere, okay. ठीक है. तो हिंदी में बोले तो क्या करना होगा, राइट? ठीक है. तो we are gonna learn about how to create objects. Do we know how to create objects? Objects बनाना जानते हैं. There are few methods. Right. One thing is called object literal. What might this mean? This means कि literally creating an object. कैसे होता होगा? Any guess? Literally object create करना. Simple. Let obj equals to curly braces and इसके अंदर first name, let's say, or what can we go with? Let's go with the game name, right? Let's say I'm calling in here Call of Duty, right? And I can go and create keys in there, let's say, and I can say it's FPS or first person shooter. Is this a way of creating object with a certain key value pairs? Right. But let's say I'm creating game one, right? I have to create more objects, right? I have more things. So I'm gonna create more objects, right? I'm gonna name it game two. I'm gonna call it this, and the second thing is gonna be there. And let's say I'm creating this, and I'm just naming it open, right? I'm gonna rename it back to 3. ठीक. तो this is a way of creating objects, but let's say I have to create multiple different objects. हम एक game store बना रहे हैं, right? Game का store बना रहे हैं. We are gonna have millions of these objects. Does it make sense to create objects this way? Is it complying with our dry principle? फिर से बोलो, क्या था dry principle? Everyone, जोर से बोलो. Dry principle क्या था? Don't repeat yourself. That's all, right? Are we repeating ourselves? ठीक है. So let's say if I ask you guys to create a function which can basically pump out these different objects, can we do that? Right. Do you think कि उन functions को, if I call them factory functions, would it make sense? They are factory of objects. Makes sense, right? So the second way is factory functions, right? So let's see what happens in here. Let's say I want to create a factory function for this game application, right? What I'll do is I'll basically create a function, right? I'm gonna call it game data, right? And in here I'm gonna write this. Take now. Let's say I'm passing an object in here, right? Not object, I'm passing some values. So let's say I'm passing a name and I am passing char, right? So if I go in here and if I do let obj equals to an object, and I'm doing obj or obj dot name equals to name, right? And name, I'm doing obj.gen equals to whatever we have passed. Makes sense, this thing? Are we adding data to our object? Right, we are creating an empty object and usme we are passing the data, right? And finally I'm returning that object, right? So now if I go in here and just call this function with whatever name we want to provide, right? Will we be creating multiple functions by writing just one line of code, basically calling that function with whatever parameter or argument that we want? Everyone? Everyone? Right? So let's say I'm in here and I'm writing let's say Cs, right? Again, this thing is gonna be your FPS, but online, right? Now if I go let's just console dot log, right? So I'm gonna get my custom object, whatever I have passed, in one line, right? So are we repeating ourselves again and again and again? No, right? So are we following that drive principle? Right? So this is a way of creating game data, right? Now, can we create methods in this? Can we create methods in this? Let's say I'm going and doing obj dot what can I call status, right? And I can like give this a function, and this thing is gonna basically console, or rather it's just return, it returns if it's online or not, right? So let's say it returns online. Take, so now I have access to this method also, right? So this is a way of creating objects. Easy है, we have done this multiple times over जब हम object methods and all we were learning, right? So anything new in this? Anything new in this? No? ठीक है, so एक छोटा सा काम करो, you guys create a factory function like this for me. I'll just share it in your chat. Everyone, and there, right? That factory function should have these key value pairs. It should have username, it should have email, it should have password, it should have a login method, just which consoles, whenever you call this method, it consoles this thing, right? And when you log out, it consoles this thing, right? For now, you don't have to type much, just type logged in and logged out. That's fine by me. But everyone, please create it. You can copy from chat or okay, right? Just write replit. I mean, it's just key value pair, right? लिख लो यार, नाम लिख लो. But anyways, I'll share you the file and you can copy it from there if you want. Okay, I've shared my replit link also, so you guys can access it if you want to copy the names. Else you can just go with the names, that's all. I've just provided names, nothing else. Everyone, please do it. All right, so I mean, given that factory function creation is easy, so I'll give you guys 3 minutes. Everyone, please submit by 30. right? We have that and we're returning it. Correct. Well done. What about others, guys? Right, Harshit, we are taking object. ठीक है, almost correct, but object return कहाँ कर रहे हैं? Although factory function का code is correct, we are missing returning it, right? ठीक है, that's fine. Others, guys, everyone. Texted it. Okay. Let me see. Oh, yeah. So we have an object and we're using that. Okay, correct. Santosh, correct. Mulkesh, almost correct, but you're consoling it. Okay, that's fine too. But I would recommend returning it. है ना? We are creating this so that we can use these objects anywhere. इसको I can just store it in variable and I can use that object. But अगर हम यहीं पे console कर देंगे, we won't be able to use this object, right? Right? ठीक है. What about others, guys? Come on, we are past the deadline. ठीक है. राहुल, correct. But object return गलत जगह पे कर रहे हैं. You have to return it outside of your methods, right? Once you have created everything, उसके बाद you return it. That's all. ठीक. So people, this thing is easy. Not gonna solve it. Factory functions, everyone, we can create it. Although you might have not completed it, but yeah, we can create it. Everyone, when we correct. Rahul also correct. Okay. Guys, can we create it? Yes, no, anything? Shall we move forward to the third step of creating object? All right. Check it. So that third step again is gonna be called any guesses? क्या बोलने वाले हम इसको? Any guesses? Last one was called factory function. Now it's going to be called constructor function. Right? Right? सब कुछ नाम में है. It's going to construct but objects. That's all. ठीक. Arrow functions बाद में जब ES6 पढ़ाऊंगा तब. ठीक. This is gonna be your constructor function. Now, trust me, constructor function is just exact similar to factory functions with some changes, right? वो changes समझते हैं. Let's say I'm putting my factory function in here, right? वो changes क्या है? This factory function is more of explicit type, right? We are explicitly defining an object, right? And we are explicitly returning an object. Yes, ये सब हम खुद कर रहे हैं. Everyone, remember difference between explicit and implicit? याद है? Guys, difference between implicit and explicit. Remember or not? Right? Implicit क्या होता था? Which was done by language itself. Right? And explicit क्या होता था? Which we do, right? Whenever you forget it, just remember कि implicit explicit हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं breathing के साथ, right? So breathing, जो breathing करते हैं, is it voluntary or involuntary? मतलब you have to think about breathing every second या फिर it just happens automatically? सांस लेना, people, breathing, does that happens automatically या फिर you will have to think about it कि हाँ मुझे सांस लेना है in next 10 seconds? Yes, no, anything? It happens automatically. Involuntary, it happens implicitly. अपने आप होता है. But let's say I'm telling you to think about it. Next 10 seconds में you guys are gonna breathe only 3 times. Think about it. Are you controlling your breaths? Yes, एक बार दिमाग ने breath के बारे में सोचा, now it's controlling it. Right? So are we forcing it? External force, हमारे दिमाग का force लगा रहे हैं. People, yes, no, right? So we are expliciting it, right? अब हम explicitly breathe कर रहे हैं. ठीक, तो just think about it. Normally it happens implicitly, but agar force karoge, to it happens explicitly. In coding, if language is doing it by itself, it's called implicit. If we are doing it from our side, we are making it explicit. Are we doing this by our side? Object creation, object sending. Yes, yes. Basically, हमारा constructor function ना just helps us with fixing this thing. That's all. That's all. What happens is we create, let's say I'm creating a game one variable, right? I'm gonna go in here, and constructor function has two things in itself, right? Though keyword constructor function is gonna hold, right? One is called this. Are we familiar with that? This keyword को जानते हैं हम लोग? Yes, and one is gonna be new, right? So we're gonna write new, and then we're gonna write the name of that function, right? So it's not necessary, but in programming we have a convention that whenever we are naming a constructor function na, its name should start with capital letter. Baki you can do anything, but name should start with capital letter, so that if someone is scrolling down, they'll know ki haan, this is capital. Might be possibility that this thing is a constructor function, right? It's just a convention. Koi error nahi aayega if you go with small, but convention, it is meant to be good to follow, right? So you're writing new, you write whatever function you want to call it with, right? So game data we are calling it with, and we want to pass something inside that, right? Any games that we want to pass in here? Let's say I'm passing Prince of Persia, right? Right. So I can pass this genre as third person. Take. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a new instance, right? Right. I'm creating an instance. ठीक अब ये instance क्या होता है? It basically is creating a pseudo object with these things. ये दोनों data के साथ. Now we don't have to create an object ourselves. Take it's already getting created by using this. All we have to do is let me just remove this thing. Let me just comment this one out, and all we have to do is we have to just access it by this. We have to just access it by this. We have to access it just by writing this. Take. So what happens is when we write new, this entire thing is going to create an instance of object, right? And that object is being accessible by writing this. ठीक. So if you do this dot name ना, you are accessing an empty object जो कि JavaScript आपके लिए implicitly बना रहा है, right? Right. So let me just get this thing and let me put it in here, and let me get this thing and let me put it in here. Take. Now in hindsight, JavaScript is creating, and not necessarily it's going to be called object. JavaScript जो भी बोलेगा, it's creating implicitly, right? You don't have to now create it, but that is happening by using new keyword. And we are just accessing this object by doing this. Does this make sense, people? This thing? Right? 1, 0, anything, guys. Since बना रहा है, नहीं बना रहा है, वो भी बताओ. I'll repeat myself. Make sense? Make sense? Easy. When you write new, right? You're creating a variable जिसमें आप अपना object store करना चाहते हो, whatever we are returning from in here, right? I'm writing new na. Now this new is gonna take away your function of this thing and returning object, creating object and returning object, right? अभी new लिख दिया तो JavaScript is implicitly gonna create an empty object, and you can access that object by writing this. Right? This लिखेंगे and we can access that empty object, and now we're just giving them key and values. Key and certain values. Take. So now if I go and do console.log game1, should we print the object with name, genre, and status? Let's see. Am I getting a game data with genre, whatever we have passed, name, whatever we have passed, and a status function? Yes. and we can go and create multiple different objects now. So I can go and create a game 2, and I'm gonna repeat few things. So game data, and iske andar I'm gonna call crash. Okay, and in here again I'm gonna pass FPS. So now again, if I go and do console.log game 2, still I'm gonna get that. Thick. And guys, trust me, this is all that we have in constructor function. Sir, can I say during invoking function, this keyword hand over the data to this newly created object? Yes, you can say that. ठीक, basically जैसे ही आपने new keyword यूज किया ना, this thing is gonna create an instance of empty object. ठीक, and that empty object is being accessible by writing this. So सारा magic is of this new keyword, right? If you miss this, no, you are not gonna do anything undefined element, right? So like it's literally just two lines different from our factory functions, right? But this thing is making like this entire thing more modular, right? भले ही it's just saving us two lines of code, right? But let's say we were writing like multiple different functions, ठीक? So let's say we were writing 10 functions like this. Are we not saving 20 lines now? है ना? Right? Before invocation, data will store in this? No. When we are writing new, na, we are creating an empty object instance inside this, right? And when we are passing the arguments, we are basically filling this object with data, right? So remember, जैसे हमने यहाँ पे we were creating an empty object and we were accessing that object by writing obj.name. उसी तरीके से we have an empty object, but case क्या है कि now we are gonna access that object via this. That's it. इतना ही है और कुछ नहीं. Making sense, people? समझ आ रहे हैं? समझ आ रहे हैं, guys? ठीक, already know? That's great. That's great. So that is all that we have in constructor function. Easy था? Anything different or very difficult in today's lecture? Easy था, right? Right? ठीक है, ठीक है. तो एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन है आपके लिए. I have this code snippet, right? I hope आपने जो फैक्ट्री फंक्शन बनाया था, you didn't deleted it. वो कोड हटा दिया क्या? No, you have it, right? So rather than going for this, no, all right, you just have to change few names. So I guess you guys can change the names. Access that old link, replit ka. I'm pasting this new stuff in there. Tick. So I'm just pasting that new question. वहाँ पे. Just access it there. Can you guys see it, everyone? Let me quickly know. Replit पे the constructor function का question. Everyone, guys, come on. Although you don't need to copy it, तो मैं एक काम करता हूँ. I'm gonna paste it in chat also. ठीक, so just use these key value pairs and quickly create a constructor function and उसके दो instances. This thing is called instances. Call two instances. That's all. You guys have 4 minutes. Question clear, guys? What you have to do is that clear. I hope it's clear. ठीक, guys, please write one in chat before you start writing so that I'll know कि आप लोग लिख रहे हो rather than not responding. ठीक है, thank you. All right, please continue. You guys have 4 minutes. right? We have some answers. Harshit, we are using this and we are calling it with a new. Correct. Harshit, well done. Others, are we solving it? Guys, just you have to write this dot whatever key you have and call it with a new keyword. Okay, Santosh, correct. Correct. What will other definition for interview purposes? You can say that we use constructor function to dynamically create multiple objects, right? And then you can go and telling about the features, right? So it has implicit feature, which basically helps us in creating it in less lines, right? Implicit nature आपको समझाना पड़ेगा. What does that means? Basically, you don't have to create a new object and you don't have to return that object because that thing is being taken care by which keyword? New, right? So yeah, you can go on with that. Take, we'll be sharing like well-written notes for advanced JS, so you won't have any issues. You can find definitions there also, or if you have to go full technical definition, ठीक, so you know where you have to look for. किधर देखना है? Full technical, only technical. MDL, right? Right? ठीक है. So guys, constructor function लिख दिया कि नहीं लिखा? All right. Karan, this dot title. Okay, you don't have to return it, right? New keyword का वही purpose था Karan. ठीक? Entire code is correct, but new keyword you don't have like new keyword लिखा है तो you don't have to return. ठीक है, Rahul correct. Alright guys, we'll have to move to few more things, but ठीक है. I hope you all will be able to create constructor function, right? Creating constructor, no issues. People, कोई issue? किसी को भी कोई दिक्कत, कोई परेशानी? Quickly tell me. ठीक, ठीक. अच्छा, anyone, we can create JSON data using by just appending it into particular list. Yes, yes. किसी को anyone thinking कि maybe if we return something, will it return that? Like it's a function, right? And functions have a nature of returning something, right? Although JavaScript is implicitly returning something, let's say I come in here and if I write A1, B2, what am I printing in both cases? Console.log and console.log, right? So if you return an object, no, you're gonna print that object, ठीक? क्योंकि explicitly returning something is gonna get more favor than implicitly. Take, if you do this, you're gonna get object, but let's say if that thing is not an object. क्या आ रहा है हमारे पास? That original thing that we were creating. ठीक? So small thing, again, these are few edge cases that people miss, but ठीक है, you know कि if we are explicitly returning an object, then that object is gonna printed, get returned. अगर object के अलावा if you are returning any other data type, you're not gonna use that, you're gonna use this only. ठीक है? Clear है guys? Issues? Any issues in that two things? Everyone, yes, no? Guys, I need yes, no, 1, 0 in chat. Issues? No issues? Clear है? ठीक है, ठीक है. So I have few more things in here, code snippets में, because we are gonna have that क्योंकि you see we cannot write this many things and save time. ठीक, तो चलो अगले नॉर्मेट में we have to do these two things. So let's go with this thing. I have written a code snippet, right? This thing is called code snippet. In interviews, no, in real life interviews, you are gonna get code snippets like this. ठीक, and they are not gonna give you a console. They're gonna write a console and then gonna ask you कि what are we gonna get with this code? ठीक, so then you will have to go and think it in fundamental way. ठीक है? So let's try to understand this. We have a function, right? It starts with E and it has this with no return. What kind of function is this, people? What kind of function is this? It's a constructor function. Everyone, everyone. And that thing is established more with line number 26 and 27 because we are using this function with a new keyword. Right? So just by line number 27, if I go and do console.log person and employee, what am I gonna get in line number 29? In line number 29, कोई भी एक लिख दो. Just go with person, people. What am I gonna get if I write person? क्या object मिलने वाला है? Just write that. Correct. So am I gonna get person के लिए, because we are creating an object, am I not gonna get name as Charlie, right? I'm gonna get position as 20 because I've passed 20, and your salary as C. Am I gonna get this thing, people? If I print function, yes, no, 1, 0, quickly, right? So I'm gonna get this thing. Now, what am I doing in line number 36? I'm calling this employee function and I'm writing dot call. And उस dot call में ना, I'm giving the instance of this object. What am I doing? Can anyone guess? Correct. Well done, Santosh. Others, again giving reference. Yes, correct, Harshit. But reference में, are we keeping the values same or are we updating the values? Correct, Aparna correct, Shripad correct, Ankita correct. We are gonna update the values. That will make sense. Right? So this person is there. Now after line number 36, I'm gonna call this person. I'm gonna take uska instance. Now this person call kiya. So now this is gonna refer to this person and I'm gonna update it. Right? So I'm gonna pick Eva, I'm gonna pick manager, and I'm gonna pick this. Right? So if I go and print this person, are we expecting this answer, everyone? And we are not touching employee, so employee should be same, right? Okay, let's go and check it out. So let me just remove this thing and remove this thing, and let's keep it the original way, and let's just take that entire thing and let's go and see if we are correct in our approach or not, right? So let me just comment this out, and यहाँ पे just name it tick and let me place it here, right? Let's go back and let's see. So are we getting what we were expecting? The employee is updated with Eva. Everyone clear है how things are getting connected? Thick. So all we have to do is just remember fundamental and JavaScript की property कि वो top to bottom चल रहा है. ठीक? तो we just divided into small steps. पहला step क्या था? Function को समझना कि what type of function is it. तो we know कि it's a constructor function. We know we are gonna assign a person. We are gonna create a object with that. Then we saw कि we have a function and we are using call method, right? What does call method do? It gives reference of an object, right? And which object am I using? The person, and I'm basically updating it. Easy? If we get any code snippets like this with maybe bind or maybe apply, can we do that still? As we saw, these things are same, right? ठीक है, that's great. Anyone with any issue in this thing, people? क्योंकि अगर ये समझ आ गया ना, we have learned the lesson of today's lecture entirely. किसी को भी, anyone? No? ठीक है. So I have created a small application for this so that we can understand ki how we are gonna use that. So again, created it previously itself so that we don't have to spend time for this thing. Let me just open this. Chicken in here. I would have rather shared this code pen and ask you guys to complete this, but I don't think कि हमारे पास उतना time है. Can I take 5 minutes for you guys? चलेगा क्या? I mean, I have written a function complete thing. I have a form and I have written entire JS. All you have to do is you have to update this function and this function. That's all. Can I take 5 minutes of you guys? Take, chalo. So what you guys are aware about this website, CodePen people, CodePen? Take everyone open it and everyone quickly log in. I'll give you 1 minute for that. 58 tak everyone open it and log in. I'm gonna then share my link and you guys are gonna do it. You guys are gonna basically solve this thing. Quickly guys, जैसे ही आप log in कर लेते हो ना, please write 1 in chat so that I'll know you guys are logged in. Right? Okay. ठीक है. So guys, everyone, ठीक है. चलो. So I'm gonna share this link. You guys can you guys can't copy it, right? That is issue. How can I share it with you guys? Again, Replit पे it's getting updated, right? Right? ठीक है. तो I'm sharing that link on Replit. वहां से copy करके please open it. ठीक. I'm gonna share the Replit link once again. Right, and this issue I need to see कि क्या इसके लिए हो सकता है, the copying thing. कोई नहीं. I've shared the Replit link once again. उसमें in line number 22 I have shared the link. Open करो and quickly write 1 in chat if you have opened it. Everyone, and just give me 5 minutes. It's gonna be fun. Guys, एक बार कोड पेन ओपन हो जाए तो प्लीज टेल मी, लेट मी नो. राइट करण. All right. Okay, so I can see like 6 to 7 of you guys are done. So I think that thing is working. Now, if you click on submit, I hope कि आप console में you can see this form submit, right? Why? Because I have done all the things for you guys. मैंने event वगैरह लगा दिए. All you have to do is you have to come in this function, right? Can we see this function, people? Object constructor and this form submit. So whenever this form is submitting, you remember we were doing e.prevent default, and I'm just consoling form submit. That's all. Remember people, याद है, right? जब DOM पढ़ रहे थे, है ना? Now all you have to do is whenever we are submitting this form, na, I'm gonna get the values in here, है ना? I have stored them in this thing, container, username, and user ID. Let me write it in here. You have container, not container, my bad. We have username, user ID, and password. So you have username, user ID, and password. ठीक, आपके पास 3 आर्ग्यूमेंट्स है, यू हैव टू डू डॉट वैल्यू ऑफ कोर्स इन दैट. मैंने यहाँ पे आई हैव क्रिएटेड एन एम्प्टी कंस्ट्रक्टर फंक्शन. यू हैव टू जस्ट फिल दीज थिंग्स, राइट? यहाँ पे यू आर गना राइट योर this dot user, this dot id, this dot password, and you are gonna call the instances in your form submit and just print it. क्वेश्चन क्लियर है क्या हमको गाइस? क्वेश्चन क्लियर है everyone? All you have to do is whenever I'm clicking on this submit, no, I'm gonna access these username, user id and password dot value. उसको I'm gonna create a instance with new object constructor and उसके अंदर यहाँ पे I'm gonna complete whatever logic we need. ठीक है guys, please try it. I'll give you 3 minutes. Guys, 2 more minutes. Please, everyone, try to do it. So the end game should be whenever you click on submit, no, you should be getting all these data and you should be printing an object with all the data. Right? Okay. So, Harshit, correct, correct. Missed one thing. What you guys had to do was, koi nahi, we didn't have time, but you can just fork it and then you can update it and share the link with me. And then I would have opened it. But koi nahi, that's fine. That's fine. Harshit, correct. What about others, guys? Are we done? Chalo, I know you guys can do it. Shall we do it together, guys? For the sake of time, people, shall we do it together? हाँ जी या नहीं जी, कुछ भी. 1-0. ओके, ठीक है, चलो चलो करते. तो यहाँ पे हमें कंस्ट्रक्टर फंक्शन का की वैल्यू पेयर लिखना है. हाउ डू वी राइट की वैल्यू पेयर्स इन कंस्ट्रक्टर फंक्शन? डू आई नीड टू क्रिएट अ न्यू ऑब्जेक्ट? No? Then how do we access those objects? Like, how am I gonna do obj.user or what am I gonna do? This, right? So I'm gonna do this dot user equals to, or rather, let's go with username. Tick, and this is gonna be user, right? And then I have this dot user ID, and it's gonna be ID, and I'm gonna have this dot password, right? And this thing is gonna be your password. Tick. Now I have created a constructor function. right? I have to create instances now, right? Instance कैसे create करते थे? If we remember, let obj equals to what's the keyword for creating instances? Keyword क्या था? New, right? So I'm gonna write new. Then what should come here? यहाँ पे क्या आएगा? After new. After new, the constructor function name, right? So it's basically your object constructor, right? I should call it with whatever data I want to pass. So I'm getting everything in here, username, user ID, and password. I just have to pass the values, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass, let's say I'm gonna pass user name, right? I'm gonna pass user ID and I'm gonna pass password. Take abhi bhi, I should not be getting the data, right? Because I have to still, I am getting the element, I have to get the value. तो यहाँ पे I'm gonna go and do user dot value, right? I'm gonna do id dot value. I'm gonna do password dot value, right? Now in here, let's say if I'm adding something and if I'm providing the id and if I'm passing a password, if I submit it, I'm submitting form, I'm not printing it. So let me do console dot log that object, right? So if I submit it, okay, got refreshed. Let me write Virat one and something in, right? So I print it. Am I getting the object, people? The updated object, right? Right? अगर मैं यहाँ पे जाके इसको अपडेट करूँ and let's say if I'm writing to and I'm writing something in here, now I'm updating it with whatever object I am updating it with whatever object I have, right? So are we not creating data? We are creating objects. Take, so this is how we create JSON data. You guys can see I have a data array, right? So what's gonna happen if I do data array dot push object, and if I console that data array, am I not gonna create a JSON data of whatever thing we are filling in this form, right? ये देखो, we have an array. Let's say if I submit it once again, I have an array of 2 elements, right? If I update it, let's say Rohit, and if I update it with an ID, let's say 2 or 3, if I submit it, I'm getting an array of 3 elements. Take, see how easy that was, right? Of course, I have created the structure, so thoda sa time isme laga, but the logic part, how easy it is. Right? So that's how we do all those stuff. Clear hai, guys? Any doubts in today's lecture? Anything? No? So let's quickly recap what we have done so far. Take just मेरे को 1 minute और take. So we started with global objects, right? What are 2 global objects that we have access to? Quickly, everyone. Just final 1 minute of energy. Everyone. I'm gonna end the session quickly. Correct. So we have window and we have document. Document holds the HTML object and window holds the JavaScript ka global object, right? Then we learned about this. This was basically a value or pointer. This is going to be value or pointer, right? So it's going to be a pointer. Thick, and it's going to point to whichever scope it is defining. Let's say it has a parent object, right? So I have let obj, right? And I'm not going to write entire thing, but iske andar if I write this is going to refer to this object, right? But let's say I'm writing it outside, thick koi bhi object nahi hai, then this is going to refer to your window. Right? Then we learned कि functions also have methods. क्योंकि कौन से class के citizens होते हैं functions? First class, right? They have all the necessary features. So they have three methods which were called call, apply, and bind. Were they not almost similar? Almost similar, right? Call में we just have to call it with the object and arguments were passed as common. Apply में क्या था? What was the difference? The arguments were passed as an array, and bind was returning us a function so that we can call it anywhere we want by storing it in a value. Yes? Yes? Take. Then we learned ways of creating objects. Take, how many ways were there? Literal, then we had factory, and then we have constructor functions. Take, yes, it's a first class citizen. Take, why it is called that? Because it can be like given as a value, it can have method, I mean it can have most of the JavaScript के property. ठीक, जो कि बाकी data type have. ठीक, it's just a terminology जो कि उसको दिया गया है. Clear people? ठीक है, I hope there are no doubts.